What's going on, everyone? The Bad Habits, aka TBH here. Welcome to Old Habits Die Hard. Thanks for joining me. Today we're doing a 15-year retrospective review of... Hold on. Can we get some music going or something? Come on now. It's not a funeral. Let's go. And a drum roll, please. Today, we are here to do a 15-year later retrospective review of the 2009 superhero film Zack Snyder's Watchmen. Yes. Whoo! This is going to be a controversial episode. And thank you for all 5 of you for tuning in. Full disclosure, folks, TBH, I have not read the comics. I have not even saw the motion comic of this film. I have only seen the film, this one, and the series that came out on HBO. That is the extent of my knowledge in the series, so full disclosure going in. Let's read the plot here. Thank you, Wikipedia. Watchmen, a dark and dystopian deconstruction of the superhero genre. This film is set in an alternate history in the year 1985 at the height of the Cold War. As a group of mostly retired American superheroes investigate the murder of one of their own before uncovering an elaborate and deadly conspiracy, while their moral limitations are challenged by the complex nature of the circumstances. What? I feel like I said a lot of shit and also nothing at the same time. Yeah, so it takes place in 85, as I just read, and it's in an alternate history. In this fucking world, Richard Nixon has been elected president like 5 times, okay? So he literally thinks of himself as God in this film. Also, what else has happened? Yeah, fucking superheroes are a thing. Goddamn blue, and I'm sorry for this controversial statement, goddamn blue Jesus walking around zapping people with his dick out. We have a psychopath with an ink blot mask. We have a sort of Batman wannabe. We have a old buff ass, I'm not going to use the word, attempted rapist / murderer. Yep, we got one of those on the team. Oh, what else? We have the literal world's smartest person, Ozymandias. What a fucking team this was. Oh wait, you're probably saying left out Silk Spectre. I just left her out like the film did pretty much. Let me be very clear. There's really only about 2 women in this entire film. Oh man, they are done so dirty. So yeah, Carla Gugino is playing Silk Spectre 1, the mother of Silk Spectre 2, who is played by Malin Ackerman. Yeah. Wow. Let me tell you, Snyder he's come a long way. Between this and goddamn Sucker Punch, which I believe was the next film he released after this one, he needed to go through metamorphosis of some type, because luckily he turned it around for Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman. Yeah, I got that on full display right there. Oh yeah, BVS is the shit. BVS is the shit. But yeah, they're not strong characters at all in this film. It's not the actor's fault. I know that specifically Malin Ackerman got a lot of shit for this one. No surprise here, but Carla Gugino is the stronger of the 2. But man, they really just kind of done dirty on this one. So yeah, we got that out the way. Let's get into the nitty gritty. So the way this works, typical TBH review, I'm not going to go over all the plot points and everything that I liked and hate. We would be here all fucking day, but just we're gonna go over some notes, some pros and cons, and then we're just gonna shoot the shit for a little bit. So strap in. If there's one thing you won't forget about watching Watchmen, the film, it has to be the opening action scene and the opening credits. Those two, in my opinion, might be more iconic than anything else I'm going to come up with on this list here. That intro sets the tone. The opening credits really gives you so much exposition that, frankly, the dialogue in the film didn't need as much as we got. That's how good these opening credits are. There's so much to the story that's just shown to you. And what's the classic rule? Show, don't tell. Yeah. Meanwhile, you got fucking Bob Dylan singing "Times Are Changing" in the back. It's memorable. I'll never forget it. And another thing, this movie is fucking gross. It's ugly and sweaty, moist. Ugh. Yet it's slick and it's also fucking gorgeous. Zack Snyder is a cinematographer at heart. I will say he's not the best director in most cases. Okay, in some cases. Usually with his DC films specifically, they usually get cut to shit by the studio, and then he ends up releasing his director's cut, which is the version that I'm reviewing. I don't think I made that very clear. I am only reviewing the director's cut today. For example, we had to wait for the 3-hour cut of BVS. This movie, BVS, I'm going to rate higher than Watchmen. So yeah, I'm that fucking guy. The one guy willing to go to bat for BVS. That's my shit. And then of course you got the Snyder cut of the Justice League. That improved on the original. This man has a terrible track record with DC, and for his sake, I hope he never makes another film with them. Just part ways and we're done. Of course, this is a spoiler review. We're gonna go into some details here. If you haven't seen the film, I would recommend you might want to skip this next few seconds here. I'm gonna keep my hand raised while I talk about this major spoiler. So if you want to mute it or anything like that, just hit the skip button. If this hand is raised, I'm still talking about the spoiler. So here we go. 3, 2, 1. The main villain of this film is revealed in the opening minute of the film. Okay, so it's Adrian Veidt, Ozymandias. He's the one who breaks in and kills the comedian. So they show his face at one point early on in the opening. You may not have noticed it because they do a pretty good job of keeping it in shadow, but Zack Snyder clearly wasn't trying to keep it that much of a secret. As soon as the comedian shit on Adrian's meeting or presentation, he should have been counting his fucking days. You saw those eyes. You know what he looked like.
I'll get you, bitch.
And I think that's it for now. So hands coming down. Whew. Watchmen is one of those films that, it wasn't held in high regard when it released. So I don't know if the world is sort of, seeing it in a different light nowadays. I've always been a fan of this film, but I totally get why it wouldn't work for some of y'all. I know the cliff notes of the Watchmen comic. I know that Alan Moore, the creator, didn't want anything to do with this film. This is probably going to be an unpopular opinion, but I'm really glad they changed the ending from the original story. I'm sure it was really cool for the time and maybe in a comic form, but I don't think 15-year-old me was ready for a goddamn giant squid-like creature attacking New York City. I would love to see it now, just to be clear, but at the time I think that was the right choice, at least for, especially where superhero films were at that time. This is 2009, okay? This is really early on. We just got Iron Man and The Dark Knight. That was a good year, 2008. We were definitely still in the infancy stage when it comes to superhero films. Now we're in the bloated and just, ready to take a break era. But yeah, they changed it. Instead of a squid-like creature, we used some type of energy bomb. I'm not proud of myself for not coming prepared on that one. Whatever. It's fucking energy and it kills motherfuckers, okay? It doesn't matter.
Why she stinks?
This film is not afraid to show you some skin. I remember one of the biggest controversies was the Dr. Manhattan penis. Sure, it's hard to forget it. It's also, people use the hallelujah sex scene against it. To be clear, in the director's cut at least, I can't remember the theatrical cut, but it was less than 2 minutes in the director's cut. That sex scene was pretty short. I still love the song, and sometimes when I hear the song, it's hard to separate it from the scene. But yeah, no, it's not that bad, y'all. People were really shitting on it. And before my good friend, I Am Cincinnati Man, comes at me, because he's a Superman fan. So I mentioned how I was a big fan of BVS. Zack Snyder is the reason I got into Superman. Hold on, I know that's also not popular, but I've never been a Superman fan. Even in the cartoons, the games. Yeah, I had Superman 64, so that might have something to do with it. That's fair. But no, it just never really worked for me until Man of Steel, which I thought was a bit more realistic. Yeah, I heard what I just said. Dr. Manhattan, y'all. Let me tell you, he's the reason why I think Superman is a pussy. I feel like most people are like, TBH, when are you going to actually get into the pros and cons? I'm doing it slightly different, okay? This is not the most cohesive review. I'll own up to that. That's fair. But I want to say, a common complaint with this film, and I'm going to agree with this one, exposition dumps. As I mentioned earlier, those opening credits are show don't tell. Throughout the film, you'll just get bombarded with all this extra baggage that we probably didn't need, or we probably could have at least waited for and built up to. The exposition scenes and the dumps can be a lot. Another thing, Zack Snyder was still finding his signature style. I found it funny rewatching this film, actually, because this film came out essentially at the midpoint of my life. I was turning 15 at that point. I'm almost turning 30 right now. So it's amazing how so many things change in that time. Specifically with me, I was quite the little edgelord. I'll be honest with you. Yeah. I was cut from that cloth. At that time in my life, I was a Rorschach guy. No surprise there, but I gotta say, after revisiting this for the review, I'm more of a night owl guy.
Yeah, I just need a couple minutes. Oh, hell.
I mean, we live in a world where, as I said earlier, Blue Jesus with his dick out. We live in that world, and somehow I'm trying to figure out how the fuck does this mask work? And why, when I look at it, why do I have flashes of being in the back seat with my parents driving in the front? Oh, man. And they're arguing. Why? One very key plot point in this film is that the world is under a nuclear threat between Russia and the U.S. So there's nuclear bombs on each side. Both are kind of just waiting for the right time, if you will. That plotline is constantly felt throughout the film. They never let you go. That, any day now, at least in these people's mindset, any day now, the fucking bombs are going and it's over. And with the nuclear threats and all that, while watching this film, actually, I'm gonna let you in on something. I was under a tornado watch, so we had the sirens going off. This weather was fucking crazy. I was actually pretty nervous. I was watching the film to sort of calm me down. I had me and the dog ready to go, had some water, wasn't fucking around. I hope I'm not too negative on this film because I told y'all I like this one. I mean, the fucking plot thickens when you say Dr. Manhattan, just by being around him for prolonged periods, you're absorbing radiation that leads to cancer. that's such a fucking controversy. And I mean, the conspirators, woo, that's a good one. Gotta say, really fucking good. But I just didn't like the execution of how they meticulously gave cancer to specific people. And, and these are in work buildings with, thousands of people. I just don't understand it, but they, somehow they did it. I don't know. Oh yeah, and also the relationship between Silk Spectre 1, who played by Carla Gugino, and the comedian played by Jeffrey Dean Morgan. I'm not even going to get into specifics on that relationship. Oof, that's a tough one. As Dr. Manhattan pretty much put it, the chances are slim to none, almost nearly impossible. Let me just say it right here. The comedian attempts to grape Silk Spectre 1, and luckily it's averted, but she takes some damage. It's fucking brutal. But that's not it. Yeah, that's bad enough. But later on, for some reason, those two are romantically linked. So, yeah, I can't imagine the psychology behind that. I don't want to get into it because it's just going to bog down my review. Wow. Yeah, it's a little egregious. And while we're on that negative, if this is the film where we have attack dogs chewing on a little girl's ankle bone, we might be going just a little too far and just trying to be edgy for edgy's sake. Pump the brakes a little bit. I mean, this has more gore than fucking Dawn of the Dead, which is a zombie film. The first film that Snyder did was Dawn of the Dead, the remake. And somehow his superhero film is way more gory and brutal than the Apocalypse. And while we're at it, frankly, one of my favorite plot lines in this film was the relationship that built between Dan and Lori, aka Night Owl 2 and Silk Spectre 2. These two are, they're kind of bored and asleep behind the wheel. I mean, they've been retired, and there's this one really cool and egregious fight scene in the alleyway where it's basically how Dan and Lori got their groove back. Yeah, it's really, I'm not gonna say fun, because look at this. This is not fun. I might even have to blur this shit out, but it's cool. At least I really enjoyed the scene, even though it's brutal. I do have to ask this. Lori does not have powers. How in the fuck does she fight in heels? I love her dope ass color scheme, that like black and gold look to it. The outfit is shit though. I mean, it's really hard for me to take that dominatrix shit seriously. I mean, we were past even the Matrix sequels with all that leather. It's just, this looks like this is worse than the X-Men. But I mean, heels and just no protection whatsoever for her body or identity. Ooh, I'd be remiss if I wouldn't talk about a couple favorite points here. At one point, Rorschach goes to jail. What he does is illegal, so he gets framed. And let me tell you, his escape attempt from the apartment, man, that's one really fun action scene. I love the approach to it. At one point, he's got a nightstick, but he's on the ground. He's like, well, fuck it. I'm just going to have to fight like this. I don't know. I really like his style. And, of course, the cafeteria scene. Here's a clip.
None of you seem to understand. I'm not locked in here with you.
You're locked in here with me.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you, Walter. I mean, Rorschach. Sorry.
I don't like you.
All right, why is that exactly?
You're fat.
Let me apologize once again if this is not the most cohesive review. Forgive me. This film isn't the most cohesive either. But at one point, Night Owl 1, which is a He's an older gentleman, I'll say. He's been retired for X amount of years. I don't know. He gets attacked and killed by the same gang that Dan and Lori beat up in the alley. Yeah, there's a bit of a mix-up. One of the punks thinks that Dan lives where Hollis lives. So instead of Night Owl 2, they approach Night Owl 1. And man, this dude, he really gets a cool scene, though. He really shines in this one. My man goes out literally reliving his greatest hits. You know, he's seeing his old villains, and he's seeing his arch nemesis, and you know, people he locked up probably 30 years prior. It's actually really sad, though. Obviously, it's a death scene. That's sad alone. But for me, besides the death and the brutality of it, what was sad is that it initially, at least what I read from that scene, is he never left those days behind. You know, that was the highlight of his life. And, you know, it's unfortunate because I could relate that to an athlete who perhaps, you know, dedicated their entire life to their craft, their sport, and then they have a career-ending injury or, you know, whatever, retirement comes one way or another. You know, it's hard for some to transition into a second life outside of what they thought they were going to do forever. You know, to this day, I'm currently working as a prep cook in a restaurant. I don't know what I'm going to do outside of that. I keep finding little jobs. I've yet to find a career of what I want to do with my life outside of this shit. You know, this shit don't pay, at least as of yet. Now, hit subscribe, maybe it will. You know, even with ad revenue, which I don't have enough subscribers or enough watch time for that. But even with that was the case, you know, it's really unreliable. So Hollis's death, it fucking hit me. You see, I just built this film up. Okay, I'm gonna break it back down now.
Tactical nuke incoming!
Ozymandias, Adrian Veidt, the smartest man alive. I don't know why I'm doing that, because he literally is. That's what he's declared in the film. Whatever. Let's go with that logic. That's what the film establishes. So he's the smartest man, right? Okay. This man and his little shitty 1985 computer, which I'm sure was not shitty for the time. Whatever. This man, his password is within an arm's reach of his desk. Yeah. One of the books on the shelf? Are you kidding me? The smartest man wouldn't have his password right there. He probably wouldn't have it anywhere in the room. He would have it here. Oh, that was just pissing me off. That is legit my biggest issue with this film, because it's not smart. I'm dumb as shit, and I wouldn't do anything like that, okay? Why I oughta. At that point, we get Adrian trying to outsmart everyone, you know? So he frames Dr. Manhattan to be the culprit behind the attacks. And also, he doesn't just do it in New York City like in the comics. He does it all over the world. It really upped the stakes, and it just makes it way more brutal that way. I think New York City would have been enough Snyder. So at that point, we have Adrian trying to outsmart Dr. Manhattan, Silk Spectre 2, Night Owl 2, and Rorschach. This entire scene in Antarctica, I love everything about it. I don't want to take out any parts of that sequence. I really don't. I love that Adrian's such a badass that he can go over his master plan while kicking Night Owl and Rorschach's ass. I mean, fucking catches a bullet. Kinda outsmarts Dr. Manhattan. Yeah, maybe, kinda. Just for a second. Whatever. Yeah, they really don't sugarcoat it. Yeah, the bad guy actually wins in this one, and there's really nothing you could do about it. Sure, you could expose the lie, but then you're back to where we started. You know, the lie was to bring peace, bring unity between, you know, the world factions. We have US versus Russia, and everyone's caught in their crossfires, because if one detonates their nukes, everyone's fucked. So man, you cannot go back on that. Unfortunately, Rorschach did not get that memo. And, he has a no compromise rule. I mean, homie, he gets his final moment. He does not go out like a bitch, I will say. He lived and died as he was. I really don't know what to tell you, but it is absolutely one of my favorite parts of this film. Pour one out for your boy. My man's been documenting his nightly routine in his diary. So before he goes off to Antarctica, smart man here, he ends up dumping it into some type of, I don't know, I guess it was a newspaper company, but yeah, it fell into the right hands. Now, the movie hints that the diary will be read, so, at some point, this could blow the whole lid off everything. I love the HBO series. I might get its own review one day. Definitely got to find a physical copy of that because I love that. Man, that shit was raw. If you ask me to choose between the series or the film, I'm going to say the series is much better than the film. But this one's good. I'm sorry. Yeah, no, this one's good. Generally speaking, this would get a really high stream it. But for me and my personal taste, I'm going to go with a very low add it to the collection. And once again, that's the director's cut, not the theatrical version. Anyway, if you made it this far, thank you. You're a real fucking trooper. I just can't begin to thank you enough. I really appreciate everything. All of you. I don't care if this gets 1 view or 100. I cannot take any of you for granted. Before it gets all mushy and sobby, I'm gonna head out. So I've been TBH, aka The Bad Habits, and I'm signing out, y'all. Deuces.